As fascist shadows swept across the world, it was in the East that an unyielding nation first sounded the call to resist. China's war of resistance against aggression was not only a heroic epic forged in blood and sacrifice, but also a strategic contest with Eastern wisdom. Former U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt once remarked, "We remember that the Chinese people were the first to stand up and fight against the aggressors in this war." Since the Mukden incident on September 18, 1931, the Chinese people waged a bloody struggle that lasted 14 years, at the cost of some 35 million military and civilian casualties. Against overwhelming disparities in national strength and military power, how did the Eastern battlefield ultimately achieve victory? It was not only a battle for national survival, but also a strategic lesson for the destiny of the world. In the face of a formidable enemy, Mao Zedong outlined in On Guerrilla Warfare against the Japanese aggression the most effective way to wage a people's war. When the enemy advances, we retreat. When the enemy halts, we harass. When the enemy tires, we strike. When the enemy retreats, we pursue. With this 24-word maxim, vast lands turned into battlefields, millions of civilians became fighters, and the invaders were engulfed in a boundless ocean of people's war.
ああいう毛沢東式の持久戦というのは日本では理解しにくいものですからね。それはやっぱり戦いにくかったんだろうと思います。
You should tell this story to us. The bravery of guerrilla war, your efforts in the rear, where, of course, you had to produce munitions and rifles, whatever you could use against Japanese forces, etc. So, and this ability to mobilize all resources to resist invaders is very important, and this story should be told.
The ability to mobilize every available resource for resistance was the foundation of guerrilla warfare's indomitable spirit, and one of the most vivid examples of the weak defeating the strong in the global war against fascism. If guerrilla warfare was the tactical brilliance of the war of resistance against Japanese aggression, then Mao Zedong's on-protracted war was its strategic soul. Against the clamor of quick victory or national doom, Mao offered a historic answer with extraordinary foresight. The war of resistance against Japanese aggression will be a protracted one, and in the end, victory will belong to China.
I don't think in 1940 there's a real cohesive set of either Axis or Allied powers with a common strategy. But I think the role of China in this is very important in that it doesn't give up. It goes on. China has an international role that is actually important.
This was not only a blueprint for strategy, but also a source of reassurance. It proclaimed to the world, China would fight on to the end.
And as a result, if China had been pacified, if the Chinese had surrendered, then the Japanese would have been freer to maybe attack the Soviet Union, or perhaps to move into Southeast Asia, maybe even to think about attacking British India. Now, none of these things happened, but one of the reasons is that China continued to fight, and that in the end turned out to be a major contribution to the shaping of Asia and ultimately the world we live in today.
After 14 years of bloodshed, the Chinese people secured a hard-won victory of survival, one that not only safeguarded national sovereignty and dignity, but also laid the cornerstone for the global triumph over fascism. As the main Eastern battlefield of the World Anti-Fascist War, and one of the four founding powers of the Allies, China achieved a victory that belongs not only to the indomitable Chinese nation, but to all peoples of the world who yearn for peace and justice.